doesn't like it there at all and wants to move up here. And she says that the city air is killing her down there. So she made my brother put a tent in the backyard, and that's where she spends most of her time so she can get fresh air. So we're working on a house up here. But I was talking to her today. I said, "Have you been out to your tent lately?" She says, "No, it's been raining for 2 days." I said, "Well, you send it to us now." So we're gonna have plenty of rain. I tell you, Louisiana's getting. I mean, this hurricane going through there is going to really, wear that place out, man. Living in Florida and Louisiana and coming up here, you forget what it was like. I mean, it was a normal thing this time of the year to have to board your house up multiple times, and then you get tired of the, false alarm thing. And Brother Matt, did you? I sent a picture to you. Could you load that really quick? And then maybe we'll show a couple of those school things. So I got a message from Acom today. Acom's actually at Brother Kevin's church, and then he'll be at Jim's church Sunday morning and in our church Sunday night. But so Pastor Acom called me and said that there was a death, and wanted to know if it was possible that we could help out with a coffin and some food. So a coffin is about $50, and then it's very, part of their culture. Funerals are a big deal. So they're going to grind up some corn, and then we're just going to, so I told them, I think for $75, I was able to buy a coffin and get enough chicken for them to have a funeral meal for this guy. Now, so this guy, he's the one that died. He died this morning, and they'll bury him tomorrow. Okay, so he's in heaven. Do you see that bag of corn in front of him? That's the bag of corn you guys bought. When Acom gave him that bag of corn, he was able to witness to him. That guy got saved that day, and that guy died this morning and is in heaven. Well, what was it, about 3 months ago we did that? Remember when we took that offering to help buy food over there? So when Acom brought him that bag of food, he has no family. That's why we're helping out with the casket. So can you imagine? I bought a casket today for $50. Now look, it's nothing special. We have to transport the body in one of our vehicles to the graveside. We've actually done it on a motorcycle, but this time we'll use a car. And then, gave them some money for the funeral dinner. The way they do it there is tonight they will have a fire all night long. All of their friends will come and they'll sit with them all night. In the morning, you'll have the service. In the afternoon, you'll have the burial, and he'll be in the ground tomorrow. But he got saved because Acom took that bag out there. We actually took him more than one bag. We probably made 3 or 4 trips to his house because he didn't. I mean, you could see how skinny they are, right? And look, if you can zoom in on that picture, Matt. Can you see his chest? You see how up top he's like skin and bone there? Well, because he literally is skin and bone. So he, because they just didn't have any food. Now, I don't know if that's the reason why he died, but I'm sure it didn't help him. So I just want to let you know that he's in heaven because we were able to bring that out there, and Acom was able to buy some extra time with him because of that and lead him to the Lord, and he passed away this morning. So, okay, you can just pick that. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, good morning. We're at Hope Children's Village, and we're just going to introduce some of the kids to you. This is the youngest one. Her name is Hope. When they got her, she was, I believe, 5 months old. No, she was 3 months old and weighed 5 pounds. She almost didn't make it. They were not feeding her right. Both her mom and dad were dead. Oftentimes, if it's way out and they're poor and there's nobody to buy formula or somebody to give the kid to, then the baby just suffers. And she was very, very sick. She spent some time in the hospital. We had a big group coming over, so we loaded her up with formula from the States. And
she is doing much better now. She is 1 year and 6 months and got plenty of weight on her. Yeah. And this is this is a long-term commitment. I mean, she's 1 year and 6 months. I mean, she's got to go all the way till she's 18 because there's nobody else to take care of her. Both her mom and dad are gone. But all these kids love her. I watched them holding her and playing with her during the daytime. The staff love her. She is very, very well taken care of, and she's got a big family. But this is why we do this. There are all kinds of needs in Zambia. We could do an orphanage that runs 1,000 kids, but we just try to go through and get the ones that are really in need. And this little girl had nobody else to lean on, and the kids are trying to make her smile behind the camera, and she's watching them. And this is her family. This is what she knows. Yeah. This is home, and she's very happy. And because now we have a school here, I mean, they just literally go just right over there to school. And then when they come home, this is their home. This is where they play and continue to learn. And they're well taken care of. Thanks for helping us.
So remember when we picked up, collected some formula for that little baby? That's her.
I'll hold it.
Okay. You can do one more, Brother Matt.
Okay, guys. This is a group. They're brothers and sisters. This is
Gift.
Gift, how old are you?
7.
She's 7 years old. Got a good smile. Yesterday was her birthday. How old were you? You turned 7 yesterday, right? Yeah, so she had her birthday yesterday. This is her brother.
Chichi.
Chichi, how old are you?
5.
Chichi's 5. Okay. And then how old are you?
9.
And 9 years old. And this one is Blessing. So their brother and sister, their dad is no longer alive. The mom is around, but she could not take care of the kids. She wasn't able to feed them. So she knew that we had this, they were really suffering. I do remember when they came here, they were very skinny. They were not healthy because she just didn't have the money to feed them. So she signed them over to us, and they've done a really good job. They all are speaking English really, really well, and this is their home. And now they've got somebody that takes care of them. And it's sad to get in a spot as a parent here that you really have no choice other than to watch your children just die right in front of you. So thank you for helping us take care of them.
Okay, I'll show a couple more on Sunday. So what we like to do Sunday night is to give, we'll put an offering plate up here. We'll sit Pastor Ackham up here, and you can either do it, we'll have an offering plate and you can just put it in there, or if you want to, your family can make a card in there and make it out to a boy or to a girl. And you can even put in a card to Pastor what you would like him to buy, put the money inside of there, and he'll take that back to Zambia. And we wanted to do something for the kids for Christmas. If we have 11 kids in the orphanage. If we go past that, we have 150 kids in that school. There's plenty of kids to choose from. Now, I wish we could do it for all 150 kids. That's probably not going to be possible. We'll go as far as we can. But if you like to do that, I mean, anything helps them, you know. And then also lets them know that what's that? It also lets them know that there's people back here that are praying for them. And so those two things, that guy getting saved, and would he have gotten saved without the food? I don't know. I just know that that bag of corn brought us to his house. Because Ackham was there, Ackham led him to the Lord. He died yesterday. He died this morning. He's in heaven. And would she have made it had we not intervened in her life? Probably not. But because you guys helped us do that, we were able to, that formula, we can't get that kind of formula over there. So that was right when our group went over. So we were able to take her some formula from here, gave that little kid a head start. But that's you guys. And I know some of you might not ever get over there. That's why I show these pictures. I just want you to know you can make a difference. That made a difference. Just that easy. You know, and I literally talk to those guys every day. You know, I get up in the morning, first thing I do is check and see how they're doing with technology the way it is today. Do you know Pastor Ackham, our missionary up at the lake, watches every one of our Sunday night services? And he's getting to know you just through that, you know. And Pastor Ackham does the same because you can do that, you know. So I wish you could just see all of them and get a chance to meet them. But Pastor Ackham will be here, and what I'm going to ask him to speak that night. But I'm also going to have him kind of, because we're going to start into Christmas, and Christmas is just going to be different this year, you know. I mean, you know, no doubt it'll put pressure on larger families because of the amount of people and gathering, and maybe you have to look at that different, maybe you don't. But it is going to cause us to have to do things different. But the concept's still the same, and I don't like thinking about Christmas right when it gets here. It's a mindset that ought to start well before that if you really want to celebrate that time of year for what it is, the birth of Christ. That I wanted him to share what it's like to celebrate Christmas in Zambia. I mean, there are no trees out there. I mean, you're not going to see any ornaments. There's no Black Friday. Well, maybe in the mall, but not where we're at. But they still celebrate the birth of Christ, and maybe you can share that a little bit with us on Friday or Sunday night. So saw Brother Kermit yesterday, and we had a basket for him that we were going to give him in honor of Pastor Appreciation Month. He's been pastoring for a long time, but they weren't able to make it because of COVID, so I brought the basket over to him yesterday, had a really good time. And Arnold, they said as soon as they get over this, they're going to come and we're going to get to hear her sing and have him preach. And they just wanted me to tell you thank you for reaching out and giving them that invitation and that basket. So, okay, we'll do prayer requests. We got any prayer requests tonight? Anybody got an update on Irvin? Is he still okay? Nobody's heard any different, so we're going to mark him healthy then. So he should be done with his quarantine, with his actual quarantine, right? Yeah, so his quarantine, I think, was up this week, but they got to quarantine a little longer because she has not tested positive. So I think now you have to go to 25 days if that doesn't happen. But so Lord willing, he's out of the woods, you know. But there is a pastor in La Follette. I forgot the name of the church. He's younger than I am. East La Follette Baptist Church, that's the name of it. He's hurting. He's in the intensive care. He woke up this morning, was able to FaceTime his wife, but he went through the ringer with it, you know. So pray for him. Yes, Dave. Yeah, amen. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I grew up listening to him, and his background was Catholicism. I don't know if he knows the Lord or not, but boy, it would be a shame to go through all that and miss the biggest thing going. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll get you with Pastor Ackham on Sunday night. Yeah. All right. Also, you know, if you ever wanted to, any of you guys could do this. Believe it or not, we have decent internet on the farm, and you could actually FaceTime them. You know, and that's kind of cool if you wanted to do that. All right. Any other? That's a little bit difficult over here. Yeah, you can adopt them if you want to go move over there for 6 months. In fact, I'll tell you this. Remember Nathan and his family? Nathan Redrick, he's going to adopt Hope. Because all of his kids are adopted anyway, and he is going to be there for 6 months, so they've already started the process. So Well, Lord willing, one day you'll be able to see her here. It's very difficult unless you move there. So, no, you just got to go move there. No. It is possible. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other prayer requests? Okay. Chris, could you remember that Kim Kidd and Irvin, the election? Any other prayer requests? Okay. All right, Chris, if you'd lead us in prayer. Amen. Okay, if you take your Bibles this evening and go to the last book of Judges. We started this. It's kind of bittersweet because I was hoping by the time we got done with this that COVID would be something in the past. But unfortunately, we finished Judges, and that's still having to deal with that stuff, you know. So as I was thinking about the book of Judges and what the main theme of the whole thing was, it was a lack of leadership, a lack of listening to the Word of God, and doing things the way God had them to do. I mean, I was talking to somebody today. It's amazing how young people today can be raised around the Bible, have more Bible than anybody's ever been exposed to in centuries, grow up in church, yet still want to challenge what God says. I mean, there's young people that want to challenge, or have a mindset that, well, it's okay if I don't agree with God on everything. No. I mean, you can say that here, but you're not going to say that there, right? And here's the mind. Now, look, you cannot give your salvation back. But I tell them, if you are living contrary to the Bible and you honestly don't care, why'd you get saved in the first place? I mean, if you don't, it's not just the missing hell. It's the idea that He has the answers to live life today. He has the answers how to avoid hell, but He also has the answers on how to live life today. And if you follow that, okay, then there's happiness that goes with it. If you violate that, there's nothing but sorrow that goes with it. But that was basically the whole idea of the book of Judges, is there was a lack of leadership and a lack of following the Word of God. Why would we ever be afraid? Or why would you ever want to find a loophole? Is this thing on? I debated this, and we're going to do this in here in a few weeks. But you think about alcohol, right? If you take the Bible, and here's how I went through this with my Sunday school class. Here's how we decided whether or not drinking's okay. And we went through the Bible, and we took every verse that's negative to anything to do with alcohol. And we took those verses and we stuck them on this side. And then there are a couple of verses that you can find that if you read them, it would lead you to believe that maybe there's some sort of benefit in that. A little wine for your stomach's sake, and you can debate what exactly all that means. There's a verse that talks about that when you're sad or when you're sorrowful, okay, that you could go to this, and you took anything that you possibly remotely could find positive about it, and you stuck it in this category. And then you were to debate the two in a court of law. This one would win every time, right? I mean, the negative would far outweigh anything you could possibly decide that might, well, maybe it's not bad just to have one, or maybe it's not bad for moderation. If you look at that, I mean, it is so, you need a magnifying glass, and there are answers to that, which I can't go into tonight because that's not what I'm preaching on, but when you look at the overwhelming evidence, here's my thing. Why would you want to find a loophole? If you came to me today, yes, I used to drink. If you came to me today and said, hey, guess what? I found it. You can drink. I found it in the Bible. He really is okay with it. I still wouldn't do it. Because there's so much negativity. And here's what I'm saying. When you look at the Bible, why are we afraid of just erring on the side of caution and trying to be as careful with sin as possible? Because we all know how easy it is to let an area in your life slide. And the next thing you know, you're in places you wouldn't normally go. And your mind and your thoughts or whatever. Right? Well, that's what they were doing here. They just didn't give any kind of, they didn't really value that. What was missing was a big lack of leadership. And I was thinking about this about leadership. You look at Joshua. Where do you find Joshua the day that Aaron was dancing around the golden calf and they were melting down gold and making this golden calf? Where was Joshua that day? Moses was on the mountain. Where was Joshua? Joshua was midway. Okay, he wasn't down there. One of the things about leaders, they got to be good followers. And Joshua was a good follower. Another thing about a leader, you watch this in Joshua's life, a leader not only has to have faith for himself, but he has to have enough faith for those around him. Because you can't get anybody to follow you unless you 100% believe it. And then you're going to need to believe it so much so that you may need to fill in the gaps when they can't. Because remember, him and Caleb, they wanted to go into Jericho, and the rest of them didn't. Had they led him, had they have just said, look, we don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like we'll be able to beat him, but if you think we can, he had faith not only for himself, but for them. I mean, he's telling them, I know God can do this. I know God can take care of us. A leader has to have the ability to stand by himself. I mean, all of that criticism that day, it doesn't matter what times change or how much pressure our society puts on us. We have to stand on the things that are in this Bible, and it can't change. I mean, it's funny how sometimes, somebody, like when it comes to things like immorality or physical contact before you get married, it's almost downplayed today in a church, unless of course somebody gets pregnant and then it's looked at a little bit hard. But do you know this is 100% Bible. The sin is not a baby. That's not, you didn't mess up because there's lots of people that go down that road, just never get pregnant. Right? It's more the mindset. And I've actually seen people do something like that and then be very, very hard on other people for a lot less. Because they don't really look at that as being a big deal anymore. Or something that should be avoided. I mean, God's never changed his perspective on it. Right? It's the same. If we let our young people believe that it's marginal at best and not really, by the way, lying's a big deal. Being unkind's a big deal. That is, being immoral is a big deal. Anything that we do that goes against God is a big deal. Okay, sin in general is a big deal. All right, we should not want to offend him. So, okay, with that little bit, let's go ahead and get into Judges chapter 21. So they went up against Benjamin. Remember last week, the Benjamites did not want to let them in order to get the men who caused what happened in Judges chapter 19. All right, so they didn't want to let them in, and because of that, God's wrath was turned out on Benjamin. They even went in there and they killed all the women. And then they made a pledge and said that none of our children would ever marry any of the children of Benjamin, and that's kind of where we pick it up in chapter 21. It says, now the men of Israel had sworn in Mizpah, saying, there shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife. And the people came to the house of God and abode there till even before God and lifted up their voice and wept sore. So after they finally defeated them, because a couple times Israel went into battle. Twice they went into battle. They lost the battle. The third time God gave them the victory. So after that's over and they've overcome that tribe. Now remember, there's 12 tribes. This one tribe had allowed these people to move in. They had allowed this wickedness to take place in the tribe of Benjamin. And then the people in Benjamin wouldn't turn. You know what? If they would have just gone there and said, these men are the ones that did this, you take them. Had they had done that, they would have spared themselves of what was coming. But because they didn't, God's wrath was poured out on, and they went in there and they killed all the women, and so there was none of them left. And here's what the problem was. Because there were no women of the tribe of Benjamin now, the risk was they were actually going to lose one of the 12 tribes. It broke their heart that they all came together. If you look here in verse 2, and the people came to the house of God and abode there till even before God, and lifted up their voices and wept sore, and said, O Lord God of Israel, why is this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel? Understand the sorrow in their heart, because they realized they had lost one of their own. May I tell you something? The church needs to get in this position when we look at our young people. Okay? I have older kids. And you think you know everything about raising kids. When they get older, you realize you didn't know anything. And then you see the heartache and the pain sometimes associated with that. But too many of the things that happen in the world are now affecting kids that grew up in church. And we can't act like it doesn't happen. But where are the ones, where are the older ones, where are the ones getting together like this and standing before God and saying, God, it breaks our heart because tonight we're here and we're missing somebody because they're still out there. They say, God, this is so sad that one of our own had to be isolated like that. Well, we lose young people right and left. The church as a whole across America, Independent Baptist Church across America, are having a much harder time retaining the young people. And then when they get old enough to make up their own minds, we're losing them at a greater rate than we used to, and we're losing them to the world. Now, thank the Lord for His grace and the fact that prodigals come home. But man, I tell you what, there ought to be a broken heart, like there is here. Their heart is broken because they're missing one. Look at what they did. And the people came to the house of God and abode there till even before God and lifted it. So they stayed there all day. That'd be like opening the church, and after church on Sunday, nobody leaves, and we stay there all day, and we pour our heart out to God and say, God, help us reach our kids. That's what they're doing here. Okay? Let's go down to verse 4. And it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose early and built there an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up with the congregation unto the Lord For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to the Lord to Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. So not only did they lose Benjamin, but they also said that after that was over with, they called all of the tribes to come together, and they said, whoever doesn't come. And what are they doing? They're coming to come before the Lord. So it went out and said, we're going to come together. We're going to humble ourselves before God. We're going to pray. We're going to worship God. And they said, whoever doesn't come here is going to be put to death. Why? Because they knew the turmoil that Israel has gone through because they did not take God seriously. So now they know, unless they want Benjamin and what happened there to continue to the other 12 tribes, they got to start getting serious. So now they're going to get serious, and they said, this is how serious as we are. If you don't come as a group of people to this, then we're going to put you to death. And that was something that God ordained because they wanted to know that it's serious. Well, God doesn't do that today, but may I tell you something? The only hope for our families and the only hope for our young people, the only hope for us is the Word of God and the fellowship around the Word of God and the local church. That's it. Unfortunately, it's not taken as serious as it should be because you don't get stoned for not coming. It's really just up to each individual how serious you want to make this. But remember, on Judgment Day, you do have to come before. Do we believe this book has the words of life? Not only for salvation, but for your marriage and how to raise your kids and how to deal with pain, how to deal with hurt, how to deal with loss. I'll tell you this, but I can't tell you who. You know those but God signs? Okay? Somebody who has one in their yard told me that one of their neighbors sent them an anonymous letter. And the letter said, would you please take that sign down? It offends me to have to look at that sign every time I leave my house because I had a problem that God could not fix. Okay? May I tell you something? They don't know the God that I know. Because here's the thing. I don't care about how painful life has been to you or how unfair you think it's gone for you in your life. A lot of times it's a loss of a child, a loss of a loved one, or something that you think God... Here's the biggest problem. People have a problem with God being able to fix things and then He doesn't. Well, then He must not be a God that's caring, because we all have lost people to cancer. We've all seen really good people go way too young. And yes, God, do you know God could stop a little kid from getting molested? Do you believe that, yes or no? Okay, so when He doesn't, does He not care? See, that begins to cause people problems in their mind who really don't have a good picture of who God is. Because may I tell you something? There was no greater injustice in the whole entire world than the day that God let His Son die for me and you. And that very act in and of itself undoes everything else. Because on that day, you ask, where is the fairness of God? It wasn't fair that Jesus had to die for me. It wasn't fair that He had to hang there in humility like that for me. The reason why God did that is because sin did the rest of it. And God, there is nobody ever suffered that day like the Lord suffered. None. So since I know He did that for me, then I have to trust Him with the rest of it. You know? And, these people here, they didn't take that serious about coming and getting before God and making God important. That one of them, some of them stayed home from this event. Look in verse 6, and the children of Israel repented for the Benjamites and the brothers and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. And it goes on to say, how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them our daughters to wives? And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that come not up to Mizpah, to the Lord? And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh. So the tribe of Jabesh Gilead, they didn't come to this assembly. This assembly was supposed to come before God, honor him, do a sacrifice to him, get their heart right as a people, and this group of people didn't want to come. Now listen, again, I didn't write this, but I want you to watch what God did. Okay? Here's what he did. For the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead. And the congregation sent thither 12,000 men of the Valanists, or however you say that, and commanded them, saying, go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with women and their children. And this is the thing that ye shall do. Ye shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that hath lain by a man. So this tribe of Jabesh Gilead, this group of people here, didn't come to the assembly. Well, they were wondering how they were going to keep the tribe of Reuben from disappearing, because there were no women that they could marry, because they took a vow saying, because of what happened in Benjamin, we won't let any of our daughters marry them. May I also tell you something? It's a good thing to hear. Listen, it boggles my mind even today. Why is it that should a Christian young person date somebody who is not saved? No. Should you date somebody who has a marginal or no interest in church if you're a believer? No. And if you've got look at how serious he is there. The reason they said, you can't go, we're going to lose Reuben because we made a vow that our daughters are not going to marry those group of people. What are we going to do? Because there's no way for them to continue on as a tribe. So they realized another group didn't come to this assembly, and here's what they said. We're going to send in people into that tribe. We're going to kill their men, and we're going to kill their wives, and we're going to take captive every woman that has not lain with a man. We're going to bring them out and give them to Reuben. Okay? Now, sometimes people can't handle the fact. Don't just read over it and pretend like it's not there in the Bible, because you will risk not really understanding. That does not change how I feel about God. Do you understand He's God and He can do whatever He wants to, and He doesn't have to get your permission? And you don't have to understand it for it to be okay. Okay? I mean, He's God, right? Okay? Is there any sin in Him? Is there any wrongdoing in Him? Well, then that's all I need to know. Listen, I understand there's a lot of things in the world today that might not seem fair. When I look back and see videos, because I was just a kid, and I see black people having to not use the same bathroom as white people in the United States of America, it makes me sick. I don't like that. Well, where was God? Listen, but I also know this. I also know that it was sort of like saving a remnant. I mean, they've got the opportunities of the gospel that a lot of their brothers and sisters don't. There's good in things that we don't even understand. Like abortion. Well, why doesn't God stop that? Can God stop abortion? Well, why doesn't He do that? You ever thought about this? And this is just a thought. But in heaven, you may ask God, why didn't you stop abortion? And you'll go, Dave, it was wicked. Well, let me show you something. He's going to pull back the curtain of time, and He's going to say, I want you to see that family over there. See, they got an abortion. They didn't know me. They never knew me. Yet their kid is in heaven. And that's nothing but the grace of God. Now, statistically, if you're born in an unsaved home, the chances of hearing the gospel are slimmer than if you go to church every Sunday, correct? That a lot of those people that have an abortion don't give God the time of day anyway. Would end up raising their kids opposite of God in the first place. And God, in his sovereignty, made a way to take something bad, and there literally is going to be thousands of boys and girls in heaven. Now, you might not understand why God, they actually told them to go. Now look, I want you to notice this. It says, and this is the thing that ye shall do in verse 11. Ye shall utterly destroy every man and every woman that hath lain. In the first verse it says, let's see, kill the edge of the sword in verse 10, the women and the children. So they were to go in and they were even supposed to kill children. Now, how? Why? Well, if those children, if under the age of accountability, where do they go? If they grew up in a pagan town that didn't care enough to go hear what God was doing there, maybe a greater number of them would have been lost for all of eternity. All I'm saying is, even in that stuff there, you can still find a very gracious God every time. And you can't pretend that it, I know that that's there, and it still has not changed one thing of what I feel about God. It doesn't make him mean to me. Because I trust him. He can see things I don't see. So they did that. And verse 12, and they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had known no man by lying with any male, and they brought them unto the camp of Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. And the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock rim and call peacefully unto them. So a lot of the Benjamites, they were hiding in the rocks. And see, look at the mercy here. They knew that Benjamin had brought them on themselves, but here were these men hiding in the rocks, and they knew that they were going to lose one of their tribes. That here they take these women, and they're standing there. They know they're hiding in the rocks, and they're calling out peacefully to them, and they're saying, guys, listen. You know, they asked them to come out, and they said, we can't give you our daughters because we made an oath. But here are these women that have never been with a man. And they gave those women to those Benjamites. And they were able to continue on the tribe of Benjamin. Just look at the heart that they had because they lost one of theirs. Over the years, just like in churches that I've pastored in the past, not been here that long to do it here, but I'm sure you guys can name people that you've lost from here. That the world has full control over today. I want you to notice the compassion they had on them and the hurt that they had for those people. We can't quit loving as Christians. We can't quit caring as Christians. Because the only thing that separates us from them is the grace of God. That's it. Right? So go on down to verse 12. And Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives, which they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead, and yet so they sufficed them not. So there was not enough of those women for all those men. And the people repented them for Benjamin, because that the Lord had made a breach in the tribe of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, there must be an inheritance for them that be escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe be not destroyed out of Israel. Howbeit we may not give them wives of our daughters, for the children of Israel have sworn, saying, cursed be he that giveth a wife to Benjamin. Then they said, behold, there is a feast of the Lord in Shiloh yearly, in a place which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goeth up unto Bethel to Shechem, and the south of Lebonah. Therefore they commanded the children of Israel, saying, go lie in wait in the vineyards, and see and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come ye out of the vineyards, and catch ye every... Man, I tell you what, What would the National Organization of Women do with this? Look, I'm just telling you, I didn't write it. It's yours to go home and figure this out. There's no way in the world. I've read this 100 times. I'm even trying to figure out how in the world do you have a happy home after you grab somebody on the side of the road that was out dancing for a feast, and how do you ever get over that and go on with some sort of normalcy? I don't know all that. All I'm telling you about that's what happened. And see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance and dances, then come ye out of the vineyards, and catch ye every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And it shall be when their fathers or their brethren come out unto us to complain, well, you would imagine that would, hey, what's going on? You know, that we will say unto them, be favorable unto them. Can you imagine that? I mean, you want to act like, be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserved not each man his wife in the war, for ye did not give unto them at this time, that ye should be guilty. And the children of Benjamin did so, and took them wives according to the number of them that danced, whom they caught. And they went and returned unto their inheritance, and repaired cities, and dwelt in them. And the children of Israel departed thence at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family. And they went out from thence, every man to his inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And that's the book of Judges. And do you know, as convoluted as that sounds, if the people that were in heaven were to, do you know that Christians can be hooked on drugs? I mean, born-again, heaven-bound Christians can be hooked on drugs. Do you know Christians can have an anger problem? Do you know there's Christians out there that have gambling problems? There's Christians out there that have problems with their minds. There's Christians out there that have problems with fear. Do you know that somebody that lets their life be ruled by fear isn't any better than somebody that can't say no to meth? It's the same problem. And we all have it. That book there was written so that we can manage that in such a way that we can hold that curse at bay and live for the Lord the best we can down here. Right? But the problem is, you get into trouble when you do what's right in your own eyes. That's how we started this chapter off. That's how we ended it. We can't do right in our... Listen, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, but here's where you don't want to be. You don't want to defend that area in your life that you know shouldn't be there. It's another thing to say, hey, would you pray for me? There's an area in my life I struggle with. I can respect somebody that does that. It's harder for me when that person then defends that as though and tries to make it line up with the Bible, or try to make it no longer something that's bad or a big deal. Well, then that person isn't one that's going to be easily helped, because they're just making excuses. But to acknowledge, hey, you know, I think the church, do you think the church today has more world in it than it had 50 years ago? If you believe that, give me an amen. Well, what are we going to do about it? Do we just accept it? Do you know that they were in a bad shape? And it caused the death of a young lady, and her husband cut her up in 12 pieces. That poison had started to spread in the other tribes because one of them didn't come to the assembly. But do you know this event helped turn that ship around? We don't have to accept it. First, it's got to start in our lives. And the only way we're honestly good, do you know the biggest culprit against reaching young people is hypocrisy. Because when we act as though we don't struggle, then we can't help somebody else. You know, they do look at us. And they go home and think, well, they don't have any problems. Do you know by nature the fact that you are under a curse? Of course you're going to have problems. There's a curse on you. You know? Yeah. Of course there's going to be a problem. Right? You're living under a dark cloud, okay? All right? And thank God for the light inside of us. But that it is a curse, and you have to fight it, and you've got to guard against it, and you've got to keep your eye on it all the time, because in short notice, I mean, you can go, any Christian can go from zero to stupid really fast, okay? Really fast. Well, when we act as though that's not the case, how in the world are we going to help these kids? You know, our kids are having to deal, you know, some of these things in the Bible can get a little dicey, right? And some people get uncomfortable because it's a little bit dicey in there, right? Well, and then they say, well, what about kids? Listen, if you've got a kid that knows what TikTok is, you do not have to worry about them being shocked by anything in this book. Okay, because there's 9 million, do you know, if your kid or grandkid has the internet with no filter on it, they've got the garbage pit of the world one click away. The same maturity that allows them to be late for school and not do their homework is the same maturity you're relying on that they're going to navigate that okay. Right? So probably should not be overconfident in that. Right? Okay? Well, may I tell you something? That if we're not honest with them, they will never feel like they could get the help they need. And to say that the generation today doesn't need help because they're up against things that we didn't have to deal with. You know? I mean, here's the honest truth. You know, again, you may look bad about somebody who does it. Do you know the honest truth why I didn't do drugs? I mean, I did other things. You know why I didn't do drugs? Wasn't around me. The way I was living, I don't know what I would have done had that been something that was presented to me. Thank God it wasn't. Okay? But it just wasn't around me. It wasn't in that area. It wasn't something that my friends did. My staying away from that wasn't necessarily because I was a moral individual, because I wasn't at that point in my life at all. All I'm saying is this, is that the stuff today, it is a 10 times more toxic environment for young people today in our church today than it was when I was that age. And then go back to when you were that age, it's not even close. Well, what are we going to do? Do you know, so Brother Matt, can we go ahead and be done? And I'm going to share this with you, but I don't want to do it online.